Good morning, everybody joining me. Good morning to everybody joining me as we continue to focus on what's happening. We are talking about, we're going to let a few more of you guys join so we can talk about what's happening here. I'll make sure you guys are following along. Make sure you guys can hear me. I always double check that. All right. Cool. Sounds like you guys can hear me. Positive news. Letting a few more people join here as we focus on what's happening over the next 24 hours. Weather Impact Meteorologist Garry Frank here with an update. I'll let a few more people join in as we continue to focus on what's happening, right? We got this rain-snow mix in store for us as well. Double check and sign in on this deal so you guys can message me. We got that going on. We'll do this. Let a few more people join. We know rain and snow is coming. I'm signing into my devices here because that's what's happening. Get all these two-factor authentication deals. Okay, we're good to go there. Got a few more people joining in so I can check your guys' text line if you guys want to text me. First and foremost, we are dealing with rain and snow on the way on Saturday. We've talked about that at great length, right? So for me, the best snow timeline is still 6 to 12 for a lot of us. Now, doesn't mean that some of us won't have snow beyond that, but to me, the best snow accumulation and impacts timeline is between about 6 to midday. So that's what we're going to look at in more detail here as more people kind of join along. What we're going to continue to see over the next several hours is a rain-snow mix expected on Saturday. Now, the coldest air is definitely going to be in the morning, right? So that's one thing that we're going to look at. Now, in terms of getting you out the door right now, it's as cold as can be. Temps in the upper 20s, low 30s. We're warming up throughout the day. The next several hours, no problem. If you're shopping, it's not going to warm up very much. Mid-30s, it's pretty cold. But we're already looking ahead to where this snow is, and you've got some of the snow that kind of travels up into Omaha and areas all the way up. That's the leading edge of the system here. And what we're going to continue to monitor is the fact that this is the core of where this storm is. Now, the center of this circulation still, even at this hour, we've been talking about the storm for days, it seems like, right? The core of where this is, where it's going to enter, is still about 1,000 miles away at this point, right? So even zooming out. So you'll notice that, at least at this point, this is kind of what this system is going to do, right? This is where this low is sitting. Now, and that same token here is I'll pull this back out on me. And if you guys have kind of followed along, typically I can see things a little bit better. It's just a little washed out. I'm in the old studio. The temp studio is over there. So this kind of allows me to do this a little bit better. But this is where the low is here. As this tracks to our south, you'll notice the core of where this is moving around. And, you know, as this kind of pushes around, you'll see that this pushes in that counterclockwise motion. Well, what does that mean for us? Let me just put it imaginarily over here as you bring it right about here. Where this is, and depending on where this low is and where it sets up, is this is going to draw in Gulf moisture that interacts with this colder air. That's what we've been tracking for the last couple of days, and it's a matter of fine-tuning that line. And that's why we have the better threat for snow to the north, because it interacts with that colder air. Now look at this big area of a winter storm. Now, like I said before, if you've followed along with these streams, look at how big this winter storm warning is. This goes all the way from Green Bay down to Chicago, all the way into central Iowa, almost most of Iowa and southern Minnesota, and of course a few of our counties as well, including Macoupin, Montgomery, and just some of the spots that are involved in this: Whitehall, Carrollton, Rockbridge, Litchfield. These are the areas that are under this winter storm warning. Now, when you get to the south, Jerseyville, that goes all the way down to, like I said, parts of Warren County, Wentzville, New Melle, and into St. Louis County as well. You know, all the way down to Melville, not including Arnold. Doesn't mean it's not going to snow there, but I just want to point out some of the counties that are under this winter weather advisory. That means there's going to be less snow than a winter storm warning. That's the difference between yesterday's winter storm watch. Now, this is the cutoff area from where we're going to see the heaviest snow, right? So as we look from Collinsville to O'Fallon to Trenton to, other areas, like I've said, the further north you go on 55, the more likely you are to run into that snow. So let's take you to Futurecast here as we continue to look at what's going on. You'll notice that this wide area of snow starts to settle in. 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, that snow settles into the region, and that's where we're going to see that by 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock. Now, as we look closer to the freezing mark, 4, 5, 6 o'clock, you'll notice that that's where we are in terms of the freezing mark. I paused this. Oh, I'm sorry, I had this. I didn't put. I'm going to put this on for you so you guys can see this a little bit better. My apologies here, and I'll go back and kind of do this. This is where we are in terms of the snowfall, right? We start off with temperatures that are pretty much where we've warmed up to today and hold steady overnight. And you're going to look at 3, 4, 5 o'clock. Watch this snow settle in, right? To me, this is the point where, yeah, we go from a warmer pavement surface, even though it's been cold all day, but the ground temperature is overall pretty warm. In fact, I could probably look that up for you right now. I want to see what it is at the Science Center. That's generally a pretty good idea of where we see the temperature. Let me see. I can find this for you. Okay, so let's look at this from that perspective. That one doesn't want to work for me. Maybe it's out of there. Anyway, you see the snow that continues. Okay, so you know the water, the air temperature, the soil temperature is 4 inches down is 50 degrees, right? So you know any warm soil below it is going to aid in the melting, right? But the surface soil, if we get enough of this snow over the course of, you know, the next several hours, watch how this goes by 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock. We continue to see more of the snow that pushes through 3, 4, 5 o'clock. This snow continues with freezing temperatures here, and that's where I think we're going to see enough of that. Even though it's a warm soil temperature, like I mentioned, about 50 degrees, it does not matter. If we have 2, 3 hours of heavy, wet snow on top of it, that's where we're going to see the accumulations. Now, is it going to be a thick coating on the roads? Probably not initially. I bet it's slushy, but it's going to be difficult to drive, and it's going to slow you down. Now, 5 or 6 o'clock, look how everybody's got snow, and temperatures are around freezing. Now, if we're below freezing, and the longer we stay below freezing, that's important because that's when we're going to see more of the accumulation. To me, that's why until 6 o'clock, I don't think there are going to be too many issues because a lot of that initially melts before it makes the pavement surface cold enough. But watch how we go throughout, and it speeds by for me because that's the way this setup is. Here we go. So once we get to 7 or 8 o'clock, it's still there, right? I think 8 o'clock, sun rises, right? That does make a difference in terms of how warm the pavement is. But as we go throughout the next several hours, 9, 10 o'clock, it starts to creep closer to the freezing mark, a little bit above, right? And so I think that's what we're going to watch out for is how warm does it get by 10 or 11 o'clock? You'll see that it still wants to kind of work its way through here. This particular model and Run a Futurecast wants to bring maybe just a little bit more of that snow hanging around. I typically think, especially based on where I've talked about the last few days, I typically think I'd like to see this line probably a little bit closer to here versus right here, right? We've kind of mentioned that, and I think that lines up with where we are with the winter weather advisory and the winter storm warning. I think that rain-snow line is going to be awfully tight here. Personally, I think it's going to be closer to where I drew that line, especially by 3 o'clock. Now, as a result, you'll notice that when we've got more of this temperatures where you're 35, 36, 37, starting to work their way through here, to me, the closer that gets here, the better that these conditions get, right? When it's 37 and raining, obviously it's not going to stick, right? It's the active snow and heavy wet snow that creates the pavement surface, makes it cold enough for that snow to stick. So yeah, if it's 31 or 32 here, for sure. But right around here where that cutoff line is, which I think is generally going to be on the other side of the river for the most part, but doesn't mean we won't get 2, 3, 4 inches of snow in St. Louis, and then all of a sudden it gradually melts by 3 or 4 o'clock as we start to see that transition line for warmer air, right? So that's, to me, what's going to happen at this point. Now watch the next few hours, 4, 5, 6 o'clock, that transitions to rain throughout the area as temperatures continue to climb. Look, it's 39 in Crystal City, right? So if you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to travel somewhere Saturday night, to me, that's the best opportunity. Saturday morning is going to slow you down. The closer you get to midday and into the afternoon hours, that's where I think the better opportunity for clear conditions are going to be as you continue to push through the area. So to me, that's where you're going to get the morning accumulation But if you go try to measure this in the afternoon or evening, it's not really going to be, you're not going to be able to do that because it's going to melt throughout the day. So this is yeah, we're going to initially see that accumulation, but then it starts to melt, right? So that's when we run into warmer conditions, and like I said, the warm soil surface temperature and 4 inches below the surface. I mean, you know, you're talking about 2 inches down without any vegetation, it's 42 degrees. So it won't take long to where you get that down, but 4 inches below, it's 50 degrees. So anyway, let's look at the wind too. This is something I haven't mentioned enough too, because as we see the wind that's going to blow through here, I mean, it's been pretty windy. We're going to look at gusts blowing these heavy wet snowflakes around at about 35 to 40 miles an hour. So that's something I haven't mentioned too much, but I do think that it is important to note here as we look at this. So from a standpoint of where we are, and I'll go kind of break this down, but I want, now that you guys are starting to, more of us are joining us, I want to show you just a base look at accumulation here before I kind of get into where some of this is. I'll put this on a full screen so you can see this a little better. I really think that, you know, those areas that are under a winter storm warning are going to see the most snow, right? You have the capability from even Troy and north, Litchfield, Jerseyville, to see 4 to 6 inches or greater of snow, right? Now, as you get more into the St. Louis area, you know, that's where you're looking at 2, maybe 3 inches of snow, and then maybe on the high side 4, depending on where you are and how that line that I mentioned sets up. Now, to the south from, say, Crystal City, Sullivan, Potosi, and Farmington, you may get some of that initial snow in the morning, 6 to 8 o'clock, 9, 10 o'clock. But to me, the warmer air that is looming to the southwest eventually works its way in, and then we continue to do more of this later in the day. And that's where I think you're going to see a lot of this area melts completely, and it's not as much of an issue. It is this area in the blue that is more of an issue, especially to the north where you're seeing consistent snow throughout the day. So let's break this down for you, and I'll come back to that here because I do think, you know, from a standpoint of, you know, where we are from this. Let's look at Futurecast, and I paused it at noon as temperatures are around freezing at this point. You'll notice that to the north, I think from 3 to 10, you're going to deal with heavy snow, low visibility, and snow-covered roads. That, to me, is what we're dealing with here at the most. That's the area where I think snow-covered roads are most likely because of the fact that it consistently snows. As we look throughout the areas in the Metro East and point south, 9 o'clock, 7, 8, 9 o'clock. I could probably change that because it's sped up a little bit. But let's plan on 9 o'clock for some of these areas off to our west, or off to our east, that is. And yeah, temperatures are mostly from 32 to 34. They'll gradually rise throughout, but that colder air remains in place to our northeast. That's why I think we see mostly snow for a lot of us. Slushy roadways are still possible. Now, moving to the south, into the St. Louis area. As early as 3 a.m., that could last as long as 10 p.m., and it is mostly snow, but it will change to rain gradually throughout as we see our temperatures go from 37 or 32 to 37. Slushy roadways. Now to the south, you're not dealing with as much, right? The rain and temperatures warm up, start to settle in. We'll watch the elevated surfaces, but I do think that it's, you know, not as much of an issue. Hour by hour, I'll sample a few of these spots and show you. Precip timeline here from 3 o'clock in the morning. We have temperatures at the freezing mark here. And you'll see that that goes from 33 down to 31 in the morning. That's where I think we're going to see that accumulation that starts out. And then eventually as we head through 9 a.m., 10 a.m., that's where it transitions to rain or snow. And keep in mind, look where our temperatures are, 35, 36. So yeah, it's not as much of an issue here as it is here where our temperatures hover around the freezing mark. So that from a perspective of St. Louis is where we are with that. Now Farmington, like I said, you're going to go from temps right at, you know, 33, 32 to around 34 to 37 at noon. And, you know, like I said, when you transition to rain in the afternoon, it's not as much of a problem here overall. Eolia points north, Troy, Litchfield. I mean, you got all snow. So even as you get up to 34, if it's consistently snowing, it's consistently a problem here. Now, the main things that we're thinking about here over the next couple of days is travel most impacted from 6 to 12. That transition line from snow to rain is one we're watching carefully here. But the temperatures warm up by the evening near 40 degrees. We got a lot of melting here ahead. So, you know, that's what we're looking out ahead for the most part, in my opinion. I think you're going to see a lot of melting. This is not something I'm expecting you to have to shovel because I think it is going to melt However, as it melts and turns into liquid that sits there and doesn't dry up, it is going to refreeze overnight. That will cause more problems here. So that's what we're looking at in regards to that. Now, our snow probabilities in Farmington, look at this. I mean, these have come down significantly. This is purely from a numbers perspective. When you look at this, you've got only a 40% chance at an inch of snow and about a 1 in 4 chance at 2 inches. It drops significantly after that, right? Now, from a standpoint of St. Louis, these numbers have come down quite a bit as well. Yesterday, this was a 30% chance of 6 inches. Now it's down to 18, and that's one of the reasons that you backed out of the winter storm watch and into a winter weather advisory. 4 inches, still possible. That's a 33% chance, but I think you're looking at, the likelihood of 1 to 2 inches. But like I said, a lot of this has to go into the melting aspect of it as well. And we'll watch these numbers throughout and see if it gets colder, but to me, that's where we are in that regard. Now, Litchfield, you've stayed strong, in fact, increased quite a bit. It's going to snow an inch in most likely cases, more than 4 inches, even 6 inches. It's about a 50% shot. So that's where we get all of those. We look at all those numbers, we look at the other data, and that's where we see the possibility for Saturday's winter storm. Like I said, the key for us is the fact that we have a rain-snow line that is transitioning, and we're watching that very carefully. And the other aspect of it is, like I said, overnight, watch how we go from precip at 9:30, 10 o'clock. It's warm. Cold air gets in pretty quick, and by midnight, we're below freezing. There's a refreeze on the roads. That is going to be the other sneaky aspect of it as well. So, like I said, that snow settles in for us here ahead as we talk about what's going on. The snow is going to settle in for us here, and I'll put this on a full screen, see if I can answer any questions that you guys have in the remaining 3 minutes I have before we're going to something else on here. 251 asked, thanks for texting us. I think traveling back to Scott Air Force Base from Birmingham. Will Sunday be safe to travel home? Yes, no problem. Thanks for the text line. It is not going to be a problem. I think Sunday is going to be a safer day to travel. I really think Saturday morning is the biggest problem. I think Sunday will be much better to travel. I think Saturday morning is our biggest problem that we have here. So thanks for sending those messages in, and safe travels to you. Will the snow, 636-409, will the snow be enough to cancel school on Monday? It will not be. I'm sorry. So you're not going to get a big holiday weekend. Katie asks, is there going to be accumulation? Hopefully you're able to see that. And then Alderman Patrick is always checking in for us. He doesn't want to do a core sample. He wants less than 2 inches at noon. I think that's the best opportunity for us to get 2 inches is at noon. Brendan asks, how does Wentzville, Missouri look? I think you're going to be dealing with a couple of inches and slow conditions along I-70 before it melts later in the day. So for the most part, that's where we are with that as we continue to focus on that. But we've got a couple of things going on right now, and I'm going to let you guys kind of sit there on this for the most part. Hi there, yet no problem. So anyway, I'm going to let you guys sit on this for now before the record is up next here. So I want to make sure that I end before that. And we will be back at noon with another update and more updates throughout the day. And I'll post this in between on, I will post this in between online so you guys can watch it from then.